Welcome to Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey, the fine arts podcast where I get to talk with composers, performers, authors, visual artists, filmmakers, and others in the arts. Before we begin, please hit the like, follow, or subscribe buttons. It's a very easy thing to do, and it goes a long way towards supporting the channel, and it really does help a lot. Hey, if you or someone you love plays guitar or ukulele, please consider visiting my website at www.rogerhumphrey.com and looking at the many things I have to offer. Much of it's for free. If you like what you see, please take a moment to subscribe. I promise, I won't send you any spam, just occasional updates. And we are welcoming bassoonist Frank Morelli. He's been the principal bassoonist with the New York City Opera, Orpheus Chamber Orchestra. He's an active chamber musician and a soloist. He's played everything from Baroque to contemporary classical to even played some jazz. He's performed, you've probably heard him on over 150 different recordings. Man, that's busy. Three of which have won Grammys, which is pretty cool. So that means I'm definitely in the deep end here. And I'm very pleased to welcome Frank Morelli to the podcast. Hey, Frank, thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Thanks for asking.
You are, I was reading up on you to get ready for this, and you are the bassoonist, which that's a lot easier to write than it is to say.
Say it 5 times fast, right?
Not without another beer.
Yeah. Well, that's nice of you to say. I mean, I've had this past year, I realized I've been playing the bassoon for 60 years.
Wow. How'd you get interested in the bassoon?
Well, I was playing in the fourth grade in Long Island, New York, where I grew up, Massapequa, Long Island, outside of the city of New York.
Okay.
You might say a bedroom community to the city, And in the fourth grade, you'd get to choose an instrument, right? And so I kind of started out on a metal clarinet that my parents had in the closet that never got used. One piece, and it's now a lamp actually sitting over here. It's actually much more useful as a lamp than it was certainly when I played it. And now it has some meaning in life, having being a lamp. And then I played saxophone. We're talking about the junior high and elementary school band programs and all that. And just as I was entering high school, the band director said, "Hey, Morelli, you want to try the bassoon? We could use another bassoon in the band, an orchestra going into high school." And I kind of, okay. I'll give it a try. Yeah, it wasn't like this calling or my family.
Okay.
My mom sang at the opera, and my parents were in the garment factory industry, they worked in what used to be the New York garment business.
Okay,
it was such a thing, and so I saw what the heck. But also, I grew up. You and I are in similar vintage. I grew up during the era of the moonshot.
Oh yeah.
On the island, there was Grumman, like the LEM was the Lunar Excursion module. Was manufactured on Long Island, at Grumman Aerospace.
Sure, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, like most guys like me, they're pretty good. Everybody thought they were becoming engineers. That was the thing,
Sure.
Go into that area. But as I got further along in high school, the music bug was hitting me, and calculus was also hitting me. And I thought, I don't know how much this engineering thing is for me. My big brother had gotten into was being successful, anyway, I decided on going into music education. Actually, to be a band director like my band director.
Okay.
And to make a long story short, in the course of going off to college first for music education, I then decided I first wanted to become the very best bassoonist I could be. I thought that's what I would need to do, because I admired my band director, and I felt I need to be better before I could stand up in front of these kids.
Sure.
And really do the kind of job I felt he did. So out of, you might say, admiration and respect for his ability, I thought, I need to study the bassoon more seriously. And in music ed school, you have a lot of things, you know, have other subjects that you have
Right.
to study, other instruments you have to learn. Whereas if you go to a conservatory into that kind of program, you could focus on your instrument. So I switched down to the Manhattan School of Music, close to Mama, back home, only an hour from home, and met up with the man called Stephen Maxim, who was the first bassoon in the Metropolitan Opera House for many years, from, you
Wow.
might say, just before World War II, went off to war, and then up into the 70s. So he was there during one of the really golden eras of the Metropolitan. And lucky for me, he could detect, I don't know if I'd call it a diamond in the rough, but some sort of gem in the rough. Honestly, and not being modest, just being honest, that he thought I had some potential, but I could use a good teacher. And when I met him and went to the Manhattan School of Music, that basically changed the course of my life. And I thought I might still become a band director, but wanted to study more seriously. But then, as my horizons were widened by him and by being around Manhattan School of Music and back down in New York City, the Big Apple, my career path just sort of started to happen, one foot in front of the other. And I became a player, professional musician, and not just because music education is a great career. So I don't mean
Right.
that
Yeah, I
negative,
understand what you mean, though.
but just as opposed to teaching as a main activity, on the secondary school level.
Uh-huh.
And one thing led to the other, and here I
Here we
am.
are.
Well, yeah, 60 years later, having had the opportunities to do things that I had never even had ever occurred to me leaving high school. Not even an inkling of what it is that I have had the good fortune to experience and to pursue and to challenge myself with along the way.
That's that's great. That's great. Now you've got a lot of recordings out there. You were with the New York City Opera. They're not together anymore, are they?
No, it's still like kind of going along. I'm certainly not a member anymore.
Okay.
I've retired from that a number of years back. It's unfortunate situation, but have fallen on pretty hard times. It does exist, and they do some concerts, but we had 26 weeks a year. We were,
Wow.
a seasonal company that basically shared the New York State Theater with the New York City Ballet, which is a separate orchestra. But we don't need to get too into the
Right.
weeds. The fact being, like in Europe, they call it the State Theater, a Staatstheater, which usually you have the Grand Opera House, and then you have the Philharmonic, like in Berlin, you have
Uh-huh.
the concert hall, and then the Staatstheater, the State Theater, often is where you see ballet and opera, and maybe even more if it's like operetta and
Okay.
whereas the big grand opera, you go to the Met, you want to see literally cast of thousands. You go to the other side of Lincoln Center and go to the big house. And so for 27 years, I was principal bassoon of that opera, New York City Opera.
Now is that when Beverly Sills was there?
Yeah, Beverly Sills was my boss. She was the artistic director
Right.
around the time that I joined.
Okay.
And
That was just after she retired from performing, as
yes,
I recall.
yeah, and she was very serious about the city opera at that time, and she sat in the first box on audience left, in the first row up, the first tier,
Right.
and she sat there almost every night.
Wow.
And when you'd see her kind of get up and split, that meant she was unhappy in the middle of an act, and her mom would often be there with her,
Oh,
and she would be gone, and she was backstage reading somebody the riot act. She knew what she was doing. She was a very brilliant woman,
yeah. Yeah,
very very
just
smart
I mean,
lady.
I never had any occasion to meet her, of course, but on television watching her, and you get the sense that she was smart, she was capable, and kind of no nonsense. She
Oh yeah,
she also
no,
got a pussyfoot around. If she had something to
no,
say, she said it.
no, she was straight ahead and always fair. I was even involved in orchestra committee work at some point, so I
Uh-huh.
kind of came up head to head with her, never in a negative sense, I
Yeah,
mean,
just professional. Yeah.
yeah, professional, we may be advocating two different positions, but never
Sure.
beyond good business-like
Of
collegial
course.
difference of opinion and work it out, you know. She was sharp. She was really sharp.
I had the privilege of, I'm based in Michigan, and I had the privilege of seeing New York City Opera Road Company
Yeah.
do Butterfly at Michigan State University, and it was
Uh-huh.
just absolutely wonderful.
Oh, great. That was a different company. I mean, that was our company, but the whole orchestra and everything was a different thing. We didn't
I
do
don't
that.
recall him. I don't recall if they even had an orchestra. I'm almost thinking
Oh,
that it may have been recorded, but I'm not sure.
oh, that's too bad if it was, but
Well, the
it could
singer's
have been.
amazing. That but
Oh, that's for sure.
and Puccini. How can you go wrong, right? So,
You cannot. I mean, I played a lot of those operas many times,
sure.
Owain, for instance. I teach these days my remaining teaching positions at Yale University, Yale School of Music,
Uh huh.
and the students, this is a graduate school, the
Sure.
students just put on Bohème, and I went to a dress rehearsal to spy on the wind and make sure that they're doing a good job in my capacity, as a keeper. And it just hit me again at like how perfect an opera it is, and how even though I had done it that many times, its beauty and impact, and seeing this young cast too, being that it's about young bohemians,
Sure.
and all the problems and no heat and just sitting around the fire, and all of the things and young love and all that stuff. Seeing this beautiful, talented young cast doing Bohème, it was just as beautiful as anything I remember. It hasn't been lost on me.
How is it different playing as a player from playing an opera pit versus say symphonic when you're in the orchestra?
Well, there are, I mean, there are practical differences about our job is like not to drown out the singers. So that's like a good idea. But but one of the beautiful things about it is, in fact, if you are tuned into it as a player, not everybody is, but you can add a singing voice to the texture.
Oh, okay.
That
Sure.
the style of playing. Uh, I thought, I always conceived of myself when the moment was right that the bassoon color should be heard in a way that was more prominent. That I tried to sing along with them, tried to add a singing sound as opposed to a purely, if you want to call it, instrumental
Right.
sound.
Uh-huh.
One of my mantras, and with my kids, my students, is the bassoon is your voice. Your instrument is your voice. I teach bassoon, so I'm talking about the bassoon, and so to use your instrument as a voice and not as a piece of equipment, that could be really very excellently operated, but isn't necessarily singing.
Right.
Now, in orchestra playing, and it depends on what orchestra you're in and what repertoire you're doing. Uh, One can bring that style, but it has to be appropriate to the music and how your colleagues play, and making a sound that's more team-like in that regard. I also played for 45 years in the New York in excuse me in the Orpheus Chamber Orchestra.
Uh-huh.
It's a self-led,
Yeah, no
non-conducted
conductor.
orchestra, and so in that regard, your music making, although of course I'm keying off of my colleagues and receiving, unlike in the conducted orchestra world, receiving comments, you might say criticism, although it's constructive, or it should be, we
Uh-huh.
should know that about how to play, but one has to be quite self-motivated when playing without a conductor. In other
Yeah.
words, you can't wait for the conductor to suggest musical ideas to you. And so, and then there's chamber music. Now I was good fortune to play for, not as a member, but for many, many, many concerts, including on tour with the Chamber Music Society of Lincoln Center. And so that uh, in that situation, one is also required to play in a certain way, so that each type, and then solo playing. So each type of music, I often say, again, because I teach and I have been teaching at schools for like over 40 years, and lucky enough to teach at places like the Juilliard School and Manhattan School in New
Uh-huh.
York, Yale University, where I remain because I'm getting older now, and so I teach at one school part time. That's enough, and I love it,
Yeah,
But
sure.
the schlep is over for me, running around. I did that I put enough miles on, that I can now try to do it a little closer to home, as a regular thing. And so, when I say explain it to the students, it's anything from one has to sing like you're in the choir and your voice is really just part of a texture and not individual,
Right.
to singing lead, a solo, a song, to uh, to then if you're thinking operatically, to light opera, to more bel canto opera, to finally verismo like Puccini and
Sure.
Verdi. And in the case of the bassoon, we don't quite like the French horns get to Wotan, to Wagner, in terms of the type of intensity that
Right.
and volume, literally
Sure.
sound production, that say some of our brass colleagues would get to. But one has to be able to be conversant, flexible throughout the range of that kind of singing. So it's inappropriate to be playing a piece that should be a choir piece and belt it out like you were singing "O Sole Mio." That would not be the moment to do Nessun Dorma, when it's supposed to be blended and chorale in style. So you do, and of course, some of that is subjective. So some people may think one plays appropriately, and someone else might say, that Morelli's just too loud, or something. But that's okay, But I do try. I like to think I try not to let my ego get the best of me and try to do what's best for the music.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So, um, I had another question and it just went. Oh, I know what I was going to ask. The Orpheus was involved in, and I was going to ask about this. You were in the orchestra was involved in two albums with Wayne Shorter. Is that correct?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
did
Well,
that come about?
two albums. Well, two albums set. I mean, I'm not. I'm trying to remember how it came about. We did some live playing with him. He was
Uh-huh.
an album he did towards. Oh, geez, and now the name of it. The first album I did where I was involved with him, which was not Orpheus, was called Allegria,
Uh-huh.
like Allegro but Allegria.
Right. Okay.
And that album, um, I was just on some of the tracks, in the background, not a
Okay.
jazz musician. We're
Okay.
talking about in the orchestra,
Okay.
so to
Hmm.
speak. Might not a symphony orchestra, but an orchestra, an ensemble.
I get it.
And so, as far back you could look, that would be me. I'm back there, somewhere in the back row, not up there with Wayne Shorter. And I make that point because I wouldn't want to imply an ability that I don't have, because jazz musicians that do it, like someone, well, he's
Right.
like Esther, have a skill level and a musicianship level that I wouldn't want to imply I have when it comes to that music.
Yeah, that's a different critter.
And so I don't want to be accused or be thought of as making myself look better than I am in that area of music making. So yeah, and then Orpheus, I don't know. I wasn't enough in the inner workings of that as how we got involved with him, but it was very cool. And
Was it fun?
yeah, it was fun. And then his, playing with him and his group, the
Sure.
bassist was John Piatitucci. I mean, famous,
Oh
really
yeah.
highly regarded players. We did it, Orpheus. So that's how that happened. So those two records are the ones that won Grammys, and you were nice to mention them, but I always say in a supporting role, like in my biography, because I don't want to make it sound like I was the Grammy winner, like with Wayne Shorter. Yeah, Wayne and I won the Grammy. I don't think so. I don't think so. But the other album that won a Grammy was an Orpheus record of Stravinsky, and
Is
on
that the
that,
Shadow Dances?
yeah, and we did on that record we did the octet for winds Wind Octet, which was one of his first seminal neoclassic works. After the craziness of Petrushka, The Rite of Spring, and Firebird, and when he went in that other different direction. And also, I like to joke on that record. There was a posthumous little bassoon duo, lead ono forte, song without words, like 50 seconds. And so that got recorded on that album. And so I jokingly say, it's the only Grammy-winning bassoon duet. Like, and I always, of course, with my buddies, I would tease them and say, well, it's that bassoon duet that classed up that album, and that's why we got the Grammy Award.
Grab it, don't let go.
Sure, Frank. That's why you won the Grammy. Was that 50, literally like under a minute duet?
Well, I've had a chance to sample some of the tracks off of that, but I haven't done a deep listen. So that's definitely on the. I like the Stravinsky stuff. I did hear you. I can't remember which album it was. You played the Villalobos, Bacchian's Brazilian.
Saranda.
And God, what a delight that was! I love that piece of music, and so when I saw it in the listing, I went, got to listen to that one. So
great! That album was an album from years ago, a solo album of mine called Bassoon Brasileiro.
Okay.
And all the music was from Brazil and two composers, Villalobos. When we did the Saranda, the Seta Notas, so it's the dance of seven, basically the dance of seven notes for bassoon and string orchestra with Orpheus.
Okay.
It was not an Orpheus recording, it was my recording. And I hired Orpheus to play with me on that recording. But that's not an Orpheus recording. I mean, in that it's not like a Deutsche Grammophon. It was done on MSR Records, a different label. And I also recorded the famous aria from the Bacchianus number 5 for the soprano, which is used. In fact, Wayne Shorter did a version of that on Allegria.
Yeah, I saw that.
In which I don't think I had a part of. I didn't have a principal part. I know the cellist.
I like your version better.
Yeah, and then I did, and that was with my just recently retired guitar colleague from Yale, Ben Verdery, on the Villalobos aria.
One of my former students did his master's with Ben. Several years ago.
Great guy, great artist.
Yeah, I've not had a chance to meet him, but I know
you'd love him.
I know that Ian felt talked quite highly of him. He really liked him. So.
Mm-hmm. And then the other half of that record was music of Francisco Mignone, who I'm of Italian American heritage. All my grandparents came from Italy.
Okay.
And of course, they went north and went to Ellis Island, Mignone's family, and he was first generation Brazilian. His family emigrated to Brazil. He would have been like a little over 100 years old now, 100 and something. And so he's more like first generation Italian American, thinking of Americas. We're all Americans.
Right.
So Italian Brazilian, whereas I'm Italian American, second generation.
Gotcha.
So he's like my parents' generation. And so.
Well, the music is lovely.
His music is great. And he espoused, though, even though he was from Italy, no, he wasn't, even though his heritage was from Italy and closely connected, because he literally was born like a year after they landed. So he was, barely Brazilian by birth. But he took on his Brazilian heritage and wrote in a Brazilian way. And Villalobos was the forerunner of that, like in the time of Brazilians, the people of Brazil, you might say, throwing off the yoke of colonialism.
Oh, okay.
So the idea of now we have our own music. We don't have to write Italian music. We don't have to write European music per se.
Right.
And so there was that push in the 1920s with the writer Mario Andrade, I think is how you say his name, and that was for the Brazilians to have their own culture, to be proud of their own culture, as opposed to having to write things. To be good, you have to write in the Western style,
right.
Western European style. So Mignone, but I still hear that Italian singing thing in his music. So I felt very close to that music. And I'm not Brazilian by any way. I tried to study up on it, listen to a lot of music, and understand it better. But yeah, the Villalobos, I got off on that tangent, but the Villalobos Surrounded that you're talking about,
It's a lovely album. So,
thank you.
and you have a new one out called From
Yeah,
the Soul. Can we talk about that a little bit?
yeah. Like I said, I'll be 75 in a month. And the first time the biological clock hit me, I was getting into my 50s. And that's when Bassoon Brasileiro came. So that's already 25 years now. Ah, you know what I'm talking about. 50, right? Quarter
Right.
50.
Yeah.
Just, where did that go?
Right.
But in my early
That one
50s,
hurts.
yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to put
No, no.
Taught you. So I decided when I was around 50, I had done many, many recordings, say, as a member of Orpheus, even recorded the Mozart Concerto with Orpheus, which was very well received. But of course, you might say I was hired to do those. Like I was asked to do those.
Okay.
But I decided around the age of 50, I think now I have something to say, something I feel confident to share, and I'm going to make some albums, like my
Right.
marker,
Sure.
you know. And so I made a Baroque album called the Baroque Fireworks with Vivaldi and Zelenka and Telemann music, and I made a Bassoon Brasileiro record. And that was, I think, the first CD recording of the Concertino of Mignone, which is
Oh, wow.
also Orpheus. So Orpheus was on part of that record with the Mignone Concertino and the Villalobos that you mentioned, the Surrounded. The rest of the works were that aria of Villalobos and 16 solo waltzes for the bassoon by Mignone.
Wow.
And he wrote these 16 waltzes for a phenomenal bassoonist who emigrated from Paris, or from France, anyway, I think Paris, to Brazil in like 1950. And it's right before I was born, even. And now named Noel de Vos. And he, because of his presence and his excellence, and they became, I guess, friends and colleagues, Mignone and de Vos, Mignone was inspired to write all this stuff, all this bassoon music. So we have this like trove of music because of their relationship. Probably without Maestro de Vos, we wouldn't have got the music, probably. So anyway, that's where that comes from. And then I made a record called Romance and Caprice, two records actually with Gilbert Kalish, phenomenal pianist.
Okay.
And one called Romance and Caprice with music of Paganini and Rossini and Schumann romances. I'm not against above stealing from other instruments like Schumann romances
Sure.
and caprices and things like that. And then sort of moving up the line, I did a record called, in that MSR set, called From the Heart. And this is where From the Soul comes from. That's what I'm saying. And that was music of the 20th century, all written for the bassoon, except for one piece, which was a Kaddish by Maurice Ravel from his two Hebrew songs, which meant a lot to me for a couple of reasons. And it's just beautiful. And that's just singing. It's just sticking on the human voice on but every other piece on that record was music written for the bassoon in the 20th century. But I felt it was music from the heart. It was music that had something to say and wasn't just gimmickry. Like it wasn't just events,
Right.
but to me had messages. And so that was that. So then that probably got to me age 60 or so, those four, maybe, I don't forget when the last one happened. So then when I was getting close to 70, and I thought, well, if I have anything more to say, now's the time to do it.
There you go.
Right? No, and that's okay. Not
Yeah.
maudlin or morbid, reality.
Just reality. That's right.
Right. And being grateful to be alive still, I mean, some people don't make it, so I can't be sorry about that. So one of the things I did going back to my high school days, I had been a sax player and used to play dance music. I wasn't a jazz player, and again, because I
Yeah.
don't want to imply I was like on the level of these great artists. I'm
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Just
But
dance music.
I know the style and I know how to do it, and I could even take solos, especially if I plan them ahead. But nothing, I don't mean to imply that I am of that level, because I'm not. It deserves too much respect, and I don't want to anyone that's why I know maybe I harp on it a little bit, but it's very important to me to make that clear because I have that level of respect. So I decided I had a former student. I have this big Morelli bassoon family now. I've had so many students. I have a lot of kids everywhere
Sure.
and grandchildren, so to speak.
Of course.
And one of them is married to a fine saxophone player in Denver who makes a lot of records for Capri, which is a very well-known jazz album.
Uh-huh.
So, make a long story short, we did a record uh, called the Oxmo Incident because his name is Oxman. So he wanted to call it the Oxmo Incident. I said, great. So we made that record, and then I had a plan to make three more albums in my 70s up till now, and the first was called Andi Musik for the Musica Solis label, which is what the new album From the Soul. So we had From the Heart on a different album label,
Uh-huh.
and now From the Soul, because I felt like I was focusing in on my final message, you might say. And not final, like I'm going to drop dead.
I get it, yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's not the plan, the dropping dead part. So the first album, An die Musik, the song An die Musik by Schubert is a song of gratitude to music.
And you play it beautifully, by the way. I did listen to that.
Thank you. And there's a significance to that. Every year at Yale, when we have convocation and at graduation, the entire student body and faculty stand and sing An die Musik.
Oh,
like
wow.
in church.
Wow.
We sing it like singing an anthem, a psalm,
Uh-huh.
chorale in church,
Wow.
thanking music.
Well, it's
And
the cuts that I heard off of that, and again, I want to do a deep dive on that
yeah,
because I love that period.
yeah,
And Schubert, you got Schubert and Schumann in there,
Brahms.
and
Yeah,
Brahms, right? It's like how can you go wrong? And
right.
uh, and
And
so that was, but I noticed that one, the Schubert immediately, and I went like, got to listen to that one before I do anything
yeah,
else.
thank you. It's, my goal there, like I said, my mantra is the bassoon is your voice.
Right.
And so in
And it's a
playing,
lovely voice, by the way.
thank
It's
you.
it is as an instrument and as the way that you play it both.
Thank
It's a marvelous instrument.
So,
I'm an old choir geek from when I was a kid and switched and I strummed guitar and I switched to classical in my 20s actually, and stopped singing. I was pretty good, but like I tell people, if music was in Technicolor, my voice would be beige. So
well, yeah, I've been trying to stay out of the beige category. And on the Musik album, as you know, I performed the entire Dichterliebe
right,
song cycle. And so I spent a lot of time analyzing the words, analyzing the diction, listening actually 50 times, I'm sure, to Fritz Wunderlich's recording of An die
now do
Musik.
you
Of, of,
do your
uh,
own transcriptions?
yeah, in that case, yes, I do. I do mostly my own transcriptions. But in that case, the bassoon is in the tenor range.
Oh,
So
okay,
basically just play the part
gotcha.
in the tenor range, in the exact range for which it was written. So that was that record, was the On the Musik record. And then on the other end of the spectrum, so we have music of that period, say the 19th century, which went along with Romance and Caprice, sort of, which had been in more or less the 19th century. We had Baroque fireworks for the Baroque era, 20th century From the Heart music, and Mignoni's music, which is 20th century Brazilian music. And so From the Soul is a compilation of five composers. The previous one on the Musik is from what is often called the canon, right? We love it. I love it. Schumann, Schubert, Brahms. We love that music, and I will honor it and be grateful to being in that music till my dying day. But then there's other music, like Brazilian music that we discussed. In the case of From the Soul, it's a compilation of five works, four of which are for the bassoon, two of which were written for me, and one is is an aria by Dominic Argento. Now we're back to the sort of Cosa Nostra idea here. Dominic Argento was a first generation American, Italian American, great opera composer, lived
Oh,
mostly in Minnesota.
okay.
And I knew him, I just met him. I wouldn't say of the five, I knew him the least. At the City Opera, we did one of his operas, and I was very taken by his music. And this is an aria. But anyway, to go from the top of the album in order, the first piece on the album, and it's called From the Soul. The first piece on the album is called Elegy for Innocence by Jeff Scott, who's a horn player who used to be in the Amani Wind Quintet.
Okay.
He's an African American composer and now teaches up in Buffalo. And he wrote this for his dear friend, Monica Ellis, a bassoonist in the Amani Quintet, who happened to have been my student.
There you go.
But she's far along from that. I mean, she's nothing to do with being my
Sure.
student anymore. She's a leader,
Uh-huh.
a leader on the bassoon, and called Elegy for Innocence, in which Jeff was talking about that innocent look at the future, and then as reality sets in.
I was listening to that particular piece this morning before I went to church, and I was thinking about uh, right now, of course, we're recording this 2 days after we've been attacked Iran, and we're going through the whole mess in the Middle East. And I don't want to get too deep in the woods, other than whenever I hear that, I always think of the children and the innocent people that are caught up in the middle of that crap. So I was listening to that with that on my mind, and I thought, my God, how appropriate at this point in time.
Well, I think the album is unfortunately appropriate, but unfortunately, certain things, difficulties in life, seem to be unfortunately a gift that keep on giving. But at the moment, we certainly are in one of those eras.
Right.
The first piece is by Jeff, and it starts with this beautiful. I thought of it as a lullaby, like almost a child, and then life sort of ensues. The second piece was written originally for soprano, mezzo soprano, and saxophone by Laurie Laitman, called "I Never Saw Another Butterfly," and those are 6 songs based on writings of children of Theresienstadt
Oh,
concentration.
my. Okay.
In other words, those authors were all slaughtered in the Holocaust. And this is writing that they did while they were in this concentration camp that was supposed to be a showpiece for how nicely they were being treated.
Hmm. Hmm.
And a woman named Ruth Summers in New York, for her own concert series called Festival of Chimney Music, really wanted me to play them. And so she asked the composer, Laurie Laitman, to transcribe them for me.
Oh,
And I recorded them on this album with my dear colleague, Jana Beatty, who's on the faculty at Yale.
okay.
And so you go from this elegy for innocence to the writing of innocence, talking about serious subjects and some not so serious, and knowing their fate. Followed by the Argento aria, which is an aria from an opera he wrote called "A Postcard from Morocco," and it's the man with the paint box aria. So there are all these people in Morocco, like I've gone on vacation, and he is remembering. He has an innocent memory of his youth when a ship flew out of the clouds and docked and anchored in the trees outside his bedroom window, obviously a fantasy,
Sure.
and how they called him aboard. And so he's remembering, and of course I'm singing it, there are no words. I mean, I'm playing it, but trying my best to make it sound as if I'm singing it, which has always been my goal,
Of
just like
course.
the Dish de Liebe, for instance. But not even only music because it's originally written for the voice. But obviously, when one is doing music written for the voice, you sure as heck better try to make it sound like you're singing. I mean, right, to be appropriate. So after the innocent writing of these 6 songs of the Holocaust, unfortunately, now this is from an opera, and it's obviously a fictitious character and this gentleness of thinking back to one's youth. And it gets more complicated than that, but we won't go into that right now. Of course, it is an opera, so I don't think anybody dies in this particular opera, but it's an opera. Yeah, I know. What fun is that, right? What fun is that? Then someone I've known, I'd say we are friends, but not like buddies. We don't hang. But someone I've known since he came to New York is Wynton Marsalis. And
Okay.
I mean, he's about 10 years younger than I, and I remember when he came to town, as a student, and then started working around town before he became who he is,
Sure.
gigging around. So I knew him in New York. And we've been in touch, and in fact, he's hired me, to play again backup. I never recorded with them, but like the Jazz and Lincoln Center Orchestra and stuff. But
Okay.
like playing, again, the guy furthest back, that's me over there. So, and that's fine. I'm happy to be there. Just being there, I'd be play for nothing, man. Get to play that band in front of you. It's like, come on, right? Twist my arm. So he wrote a quintet, a bassoonist string quartet, a
Oh,
while back for a mutual friend of ours, Milan Turkovic, who's a famous bassoonist who played in the Chamber Music Society, Vienna. He's from Vienna, and he's still alive. I'm happy to say in his 80s, he's in Vienna, and we're still friends. And he wrote a really cool piece for bassoon and string quartet in a variety of styles, as the way that Wynton writes. So it's not just like now I'm going to write something jazzy, so to speak, for bassoon and strings, but it's a real piece with all sorts of styles in it. And coming from my saxophone days, I felt like I had an affinity for the idea of eliciting this ch- really quick changing varieties of stylistic demands.
right.
From he writes bebop to more blues, R&B, church music, funk, Latin. It's all in there. And so that piece doesn't have as programmatic as, like, say, the first three or the last piece
Uh-huh.
in terms of soul. But I mean, you could thinking of soul and Wynton Marsalis is not a very hard
That's not a big jump.
big jump. Right. And knowing him all these years and hearing the piece, I felt like with the Saranda, I wanted to bring something I felt that I was worthy of perhaps contributing something by recording it again. And then the last piece was written for me from scratch, as opposed to, say, adapted, as in the case of the 6 songs, by Nurmali Fenn, called Prayer,
Okay.
the last piece on the record, and on the CD. In fact, it's not even a CD anymore, the album. The woman, Sunny Kang, who is the founder of Musica Solis, she says to me, many people live stream now and download, so don't even use the term CD anymore. Now it's album. You know,
We're back
like
to that word.
you and I would say, yeah, on this record I made.
Right.
Like somebody would say,
I still
what's
say it.
right? And you'd have to explain it was like this 12-inch,
My
and then,
grandkids look at me sideways.
yeah, I know, yeah, exactly. And the last piece called Prayer, and uh, and normally was born in Sri Lanka, but orphaned, without getting too much into the story, adopted into an Australian family, and ended up at Oxford.
Wow.
Imagine that. And we were colleagues at Stony Brook, which is a state university in the New York
Right.
area with a
Hmm.
very strong music department, other departments too, but strong music
Sure.
department. And so we became colleagues, friends there. And she wrote me this piece that's more or less a call to prayer. And in fact, calls upon the bassoon to sound more like a duduk, that's the like Armenian oboe.
Oh,
You hear
okay.
it in movies that has a like woo 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 woo
Uh-huh.
woo
Right. Hmm.
kind of thing. So um, and some other techniques to change colors, but again with an expressive intention, not just a contemporary technique to have some new sound, but a sound that really elicited exactly the emotion that you were hoping for, one might be hoping for. And so we go from the elegy for innocence to poetry of children of the Holocaust to a whimsical, less morbid, less deep, in a certain way, reminiscences of a young man, of a man thinking of his youth.
Uh-huh.
The soulful music of Wynton and the wonderful Callisto quartet that I played with. The pianist on this album, as it was on the previous album, the Schumann album, was Wei Yi Yang, who's a colleague of mine also at Yale. A beautiful player. And ending with Nermeli's piece, A Prayer. And so it's sort of like, after all of this, we need a prayer. Right? And so the album is, it's another message for me. It's another message. And on it calls upon me to play with different types of sounds and styles, from a more, if you want to call it, jazzy style, to this Middle Eastern duduk style, to operatic style, to lieder style, which you might say where I'm almost not quite klezmer, but in that direction,
right,
in the
sure.
songs of the children, to a more almost straight ahead style in Jeff's piece, the first piece on the album. And so that's the album that just dropped literally a week ago, using the new term, the final cuts of it, because it's so funny, as you and I would know from the past, the idea of releasing one piece at a time. You wouldn't do that with a record, a piece of
no
plastic,
just
vinyl.
It all goes out together, right?
Yeah, right. So now the record is the album in its entirety has been released. And then I would say, just want to throw in here, we don't have to get into it too much, but we have just made a second album with Keith Oxman, the saxophonist, which we're calling Classicool.
I love it.
And the point is, well, you see, while I understand the style, I am not, and I made that point to you several times in this podcast, in our discussion, I do not see myself as some great jazz musician, but I do know how to play the style, and I do know how to sing. And so I see myself in a jazz combo with those fantastic jazz players that I play with, more as a vocalist, instrumentalist, than as someone taking the hot solos.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
And in terms of classical, and about half of the previous album, but every tune on the album is related to what we call the classical world.
Now, are you done recording that? Or
yes, it's done. It's being, we're working on editing it and getting the cover art and all of that. So that'll be out, I don't know, in a half a year or something like that.
Well, I'll have to have you back on the show. We can talk about that one.
Oh, I would love to, because it's interesting tying in, and I think it's important for the future of music, tying in how it all goes together, as opposed to separate.
Pigeonhole.
Pigeonholing.
Yeah, right. I agree. I had to play some light instrumental pop music for some people a number of years ago, and a friend of mine who's has a small recording studio, and I did it there for them. And as I was walking out of his studio, I said, it just feels weird. I've spent my entire adult life learning how to play classical music, and now I'm playing this pop music from the 60s. And he just said, it's all music.
It's all music.
It's all music.
I totally agree, man.
And I was able to just literally take that right off my shoulders and go, you're right. It's just that fast.
Whatever music you play has to be within the style that it was intended.
Yeah.
And when you play Brahms, when one plays Brahms, we don't have Bassoon doesn't have chamber music, Brahms, but in a Brahms famous piano quintet or piano trio, there are movements that are just Hungarian.
Right.
So they're different than his, if you want to call it, German music. Or if you're playing Dvorak, that's not German. Dvorak was Czech.
Right. Right.
And
so you have to you assume the mantle of whatever.
Exactly. And if it was Chuck Berry that you had to play, you should play it like Chuck Berry, man.
Exactly.
Or Simon and Garfunkel, or whatever, whatever guitar.
Whomever, right. Whomever.
Yeah.
Well, believe it or not, Frank, we are out of time and then some.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I'm absolutely loving this. I wish we could go on for another couple of hours. And so if you let me know when the next one's out, we'll do that, and we'll just pick it up from there.
Oh, that would be cool. I'd be happy to share with you. I appreciate if people listen, but I think there are some intriguing connections to be made the classical world and the jazz or popular
Oh, we will
world.
definitely have to get after that one. So,
I would love to. I'd be happy to. If you'd like to, I'm happy to.
thanks, Frank. In the meantime, thank you for your time. I really appreciated it.
Oh, no, I did too. Thank you. It's a pleasure. I'm sorry I talked your ear off.
No, 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 no. That's why they pay me the big bucks.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Both of them. I'll see you soon.
All right, you take care.
I'd like to thank Frank Morelli for taking the time to come on the show. If you would like to know more, you can find a link to his website in the descriptions below. I'd like to thank you too for taking the time to listen. If you enjoy these podcasts, please share your favorite episodes with your friends and introduce them to Creative Conversations with Roger Humphrey.